क्लीन इंडिया, क्लीन इंडिया, स्वच्छता ही सेवा है, क्लीन इंडिया,
एनएसएस से जाना है, हंसराज को स्वच्छ बनाना है,
एनएसएस ने ठाना है, एनएसएस ने ठाना है।
हंसराज को स्वच्छ बनाना है। NSS ने ठाना है।
हंसराज को स्वच्छ बनाना है।
NSS ने ठाना है।
हंसराज को स्वच्छ बनाना है।
बात आती है कि भाई एनएसएस का सर्टिफिकेट तो 2 साल के काम करने पे मिलता है, लगातार 2 साल का इफ यू वर्क देन यू विल गेट द सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ एनएसएस. All of them have said that they have started doing the work as volunteer in their first year and now they are in third year. So what motive they may have to continue in the third year? छोड़ के तो जा सकते थे ना, 2 साल हो गए, पूरे सर्टिफिकेट मिल गया, टाटा बाय बाय. But when these people have continued, it's not for the certificate. It's for the will that they have to serve the society. दूसरों के चेहरे पे मुस्कान, चारों ने ये बात बोली थी, यही बात मैंने स्टार्टिंग में बोली थी कि वो एक मुस्कान के लिए हम लोग काम करते हैं, दूसरों के लिए काम करते हैं. सर्टिफिकेट इतना मायने नहीं रखता है. सो यहाँ पे कई स्टूडेंट्स ऐसे होंगे जो कहेंगे, अब इसने बोला, अर्कजा ने बोला था कि भाई मेरे बहुत बर्डन था, पढ़ाई कैसे करेंगे, कुछ बर्डन तो शायद मैंने इसको दिया होगा मैप्रो की क्लास में. तो ऐसे ये संयम है, ये भी मेरी क्लास का स्टूडेंट है, ये भी बहुत डांट खाया होगा मुझसे. सो इट्स नॉट अबाउट कि भाई आप पढ़ाई कैसे मैनेज करोगे, एनएसएस का काम है, ये काम है, वो काम है. व्हाट मैटर्स इज कि इफ यू आर डूइंग एनएसएस वर्क, वो आपके दिल से निकलना चाहिए. वो दिल से सेवा का भाव होगा तभी कुछ कर पाओगे, वरना दिमाग में वो सर्टिफिकेट या वो बर्डन पढ़ाई का, यहाँ भी जाना है वो भी करना है, तो घूमता रहेगा. वरना इस बच्चे की तरह रात को 11 बजे अरे एक भाई तफरी मारने चल रहे, लौंडे लोग हैं, चलो तफरी मारते. बट अल्टीमेटली क्या हुआ, वहां पे किसी बूढ़े आदमी को ठंड की रात में सोता हुआ देखा, उसके ऊपर कंबल उड़ाया, वो सेवा है. और वही भाव अगर आप लोगों में है तो आप काम कर सकते हो. दूसरी चीज जो थी, जो टाइम 240 आवर्स का है, 2 साल लगातार का. ऐसा नहीं है कि मैंने फर्स्ट ईयर में करा फिर मैं सीधा थर्ड ईयर में करूंगा, ऐसा नहीं है. वो 2 साल कंटिन्यूएशन में, और 2 साल के बाद सर्टिफिकेट मिलता है. कई बच्चे सोचते हैं कि भैया 1 साल कर लिया बहुत हो गया, अब हमें 120 आवर्स हो गए, सर्टिफिकेट दे दो. दूसरी चीज, डोंट रिस्ट्रिक्ट योरसेल्फ टू 120 आवर्स. आपने इन सबका देखा कि ये ना अपने सेकंड ईयर पे रुके हैं और ना ही 120 आवर्स पे रुके हैं. इनके पता नहीं 120 आवर्स कब के खत्म हो चुके होंगे, 120 के 240 360 पता नहीं कितने आवर्स खत्म हो गए होंगे. लेकिन वही सेवा का भाव है जिसको ये आज लोग लेके चल रहे हैं. सो अगर अपने वो होता है ना कि घड़ी देख के काम करोगे, ये पुरानी कहावत है. सो हम लोग घड़ी देख के काम नहीं करते. घड़ी देख के काम तब करते हैं कि भाई हाँ हमें मैनेज करना है, टाइम मैनेजमेंट करने की, हाँ अब मैम आ गई है, मैम का स्पीकर सेशन है तो वो घड़ी देखेंगे. लेकिन जब सेवा का भाव है तब हम घड़ी नहीं देखते, हम अपने हिसाब से करते रहते हैं. दूसरा देन जो ट्रस्ट की बात करी थी, वो ट्रस्ट बहुत जरूरी है. अगर वो ट्रस्ट नहीं रहा किसी पर, से सपोज अगर मैंने इस बच्चे को, अगेन एग्जांपल माइंड मत करना, अगर मैंने इस बच्चे को बोला कि भाई ये काम करो और ये उस दिन गायब हो गया, सो वो ट्रस्ट है जो मेंटेन करना होता है. सो जब वहां पे पढ़ाकू के बच्चों को विश्वास था आप पे, या आपके संजय बस्ती के लोगों को विश्वास था कि हाँ ये भैया आएंगे या ये दीदी आएंगे, उनका वो ट्रस्ट मत ब्रेक करना. अगर आप नहीं जा पा रहे हो कोई बात नहीं, देखो बीमार भी हो सकते हो, अगले दिन एग्जाम भी हो सकते हैं, बहुत सारे इश्यूज आते हैं. बारिश इतनी तेज होगी तो वो लोग तो जानेंगे ही ना कि हाँ आज भैया दीदी नहीं आ पाएंगे. सो कोई बात नहीं, लेकिन अपना ट्रस्ट मेंटेन करके रखो. उनको बोल दो कि भैया आज बारिश बहुत हो रही है, हम नहीं आ पाएंगे, हम कल आपसे जरूर मिलने आएंगे. वो विश्वास नहीं तोड़ना है, बिल्कुल नहीं तोड़ना है. अनदर थिंग, यहाँ पे बहुत अभी जो यहाँ पे पहला बच्चा है और ये दूसरा बच्चा है, दोनों ने बोला कि भाई हाँ इन्होंने पहले वॉलंटरी काम किया हुआ है. सो ये आपके पास पूरा फ्री विल होता है, पूरा फ्री हैंड होता है. आपको जो वॉलंटरी काम करना है आप करो, हमें बता के कर दो कि भाई हम ये काम कर रहे हैं. आप एनजीओ के साथ कर रहे हो, आप एनजीओ को हमारे साथ लेकर आओ. एनएसएस हंसराज कॉलेज और वो एनजीओ मिलके काम करेगा, हमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. आपके पास कोई आइडिया है कि हाँ इस तरीके से हम सोसाइटी की सेवा कर सकते हैं, जो शायद अभी तक एनएसएस नहीं कर रहा हो, आप लेकर आइए. आपके पास अच्छा आइडिया है, हम उसको आगे फॉरवर्ड करेंगे. हम न्यू आइडियाज को प्रमोट करते हैं. और बाय चांस अगर ये बच्चे ना मिला, ऑब्वियसली ये लोग रोज रोज ये टी शर्ट नहीं पहन कर आएंगे, इनके चेहरे तो देख लो, लेकिन नहीं मिलेंगे. बच्चों की भीड़ में कहाँ खो जाएंगे, नहीं मिलेंगे. और यूजुअली नहीं पहचान में आते, वो संयम शायद पहचान में आ जाए, इतना लंबा है और बिल्कुल अलग पर्सनैलिटी है, वो शायद पहचान में आ जाए, लेकिन बाकी लोग ना पहचान में. सो इफ यू डोंट फाइंड एनीवन, यू कैन कम टू मी और मेरे को अपने आइडियाज बता दो, कोई दिक्कत की बात नहीं है. वो आइडियाज अगर हम लोग इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाए, हम जरूर करेंगे. इम्प्लीमेंट करना ही हमारा मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव है, जिससे सोसाइटी की सेवा हो. वो भले एनजीओ के थ्रू हो, भले एनएसएस के थ्रू हो, या भले आप खुद कर रहे हो. ठीक है, सेवा का भाव मन में, आप अपने आइडियाज लाइए, हमें कोई दिक्कत की बात नहीं है, आप करिए. एक लास्ट चीज अबाउट दी माय भारत पोर्टल, ये बताया था आप लोगों ने. अच्छा उस पे सो एक्चुअली हुआ क्या है कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने बोला है कि भाई हमारे देश के लोग, भाई हम भारत में रहते हैं तो भारत का तो भाव ही है कि सेवा भाव करना है। और जब भारत में सेवा भाव से लोग काम करते हैं तो बहुत बदलाव आता है। एक दिन में ना नहीं आता, वो किसने बोला था एक दिन में बदलाव नहीं आता, लेकिन एक दिन बदलाव जरूर आता है। तो बदलाव आता है और बदलाव आया भी है। लेकिन सरकार को कैसे पता चलेगा कि हाँ यहाँ पे जहाँ पहले बंजर जमीन थी वहां पे एक अच्छा खासा आपका जंगल खड़ा हो गया जिससे ऑक्सीजन मिल रही है, जिससे अच्छी खासी क्लीनलीनेस हवा की हो रही है, वो कैसे पता चलेगा? तो सरकार ने ही क्या कर रखा है, एक ऑनलाइन ऐप बना रखा है, पोर्टल बना रखा है जिसका नाम है मेरा युवा भारत। आप लोग युवा हैं सारे और युवा ही आगे देश को चलाएंगे। सो मेरा युवा भारत विच इज माय भारत पोर्टल, वो सरकार ने एक बनाया हुआ है। आप जो भी उसमें काम कर रहे हो, सोसाइटी के लिए कुछ भी काम कर रहे हो, सेवा का भाव है, आप वो सेवा का भाव वहां पे अपना डाल सकते हो। सरकार को भी आइडियाज दे सकते हो कि भाई मैं ये काम कर रहा हूँ, मैं बहुत छोटे स्तर पे कर रहा हूँ, छोटे से स्तर पे करने पे इसका इतना बड़ा इम्पैक्ट है। अगर सरकार इसको पूरे बड़े लेवल पे लेके जाएगी तो इसका इम्पैक्ट काफी तगड़ा हो सकता है। और क्या पता है कि आपके छोटे से ही उस आइडिया से कुछ एक बहुत बढ़िया निकल कर आए देश के लिए। सो वो माय भारत पोर्टल पे आप लोग डाल सकते हैं। सो माय भारत पोर्टल पे व्हाट ही सेड अबाउट द नेहरू युवा केंद्र, नेहरू युवा केंद्र इज ऑल्सो इट्स लाइक एन एनजीओ टाइप बट नॉट एन एनजीओ, क्योंकि एनजीओ नॉन गवर्नमेंट हो जाता है। बट नेहरू युवा केंद्र इज अगेन एक कह लो संगठन है जो सोसाइटी के लिए काम करती है। सो आप माय भारत पोर्टल पे एज वॉलेंटियर आप अप्लाई करो कि हाँ मैं देश के लिए सेवा के लिए कुछ करना चाहता हूँ। ओके आप उसको एज नेहरू युवा केंद्र का वॉलेंटियर कहो या आप एनएसएस का वॉलेंटियर कहो या आप इन एक जनरल वॉलेंटियर। यहाँ पे कई बच्चे मेरे पास आए और बोले कि मैम हमें एनएसएस ज्वाइन करना है पर एनएसएस लेट हो गया, मतलब उनका एडमिशन लेट हुआ या फिर वो फॉर्म भरने से रह गए या वो बाई चांस होता है कि भाई जिस दिन लास्ट डेट थी नेट नहीं चला, फलाना ढकाना, बहुत सारी चीजें होती है। अगर आप एनएसएस नहीं ज्वाइन कर पा रहे हो, दिस इज नॉट द एंड ऑफ एवरीथिंग। एनएसएस का मतलब है सेवा करना। विदाउट बीइंग एनएसएस वॉलंटियर आप सेवा तो कर सकते हो ना, हमारा मोटिव भी सेवा करने का है। सो अगर भले आपने फॉर्म नहीं भरा, आप एनएसएस का हिस्सा नहीं हो, आप सेवा करना चाहते हो, आप आओ, बी वेलकम। सेवा ही तो करनी है और सेवा ही हमारा परमो धर्म है। Okay, so these were the things that I want to say, and with this I actually and अच्छा NSS में awareness भी बहुत हम लोग फैलाते हैं, ये चीज याद रखना। क्लीनलीनेस हम खुद करी, लेकिन क्लीनलीनेस को लेके हमने अवेयरनेस भी फैलाई, जिससे बच्चों ने नुक्कड़ नाटक करा या रैली निकाली। सो अभी जो सेशन हो रहे हैं ये भी एक अवेयरनेस से रिलेटेड सेशन है। अवेयरनेस आपको होगी, उस अवेयरनेस का इम्प्लीमेंटेशन फिर आप लोग करोगे अपने एरिया में, अपने गाँव में, अपने पढ़ाकों के बच्चों के साथ। सो विद दीज वर्ड्स आई एम एंडिंग एंड शिवानी over to you.
Now we would like Kaveri ma'am to address the audience with her session on nutritional concerns impacting the youth in contemporary times.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this wonderful introduction. And I'm really happy to be here today amongst all of you. And before I start my talk, I would just like to congratulate Convener NSS, Dr. Purva, the core team NSS, and all the volunteers of NSS for the cleanliness drive that is going on in that college. A big round of applause for all of you. And first time as such, I think it's a wonderful thing that is happening, and it's a week-long program, and I was really happy to see that. So now the talk, as you can see, the title of my talk, it's a very general topic that is concerning all of us nowadays. And here I've concentrated on the youth, that is all of you here right now. Now, firstly, some very basic concepts, or before that, some motivational quotes about nutrition. Now, the first quote that you can see is, "Let food be your medicine and medicine be your food." This is by Hippocrates, the father of medicine. All of you know the father of medicine is Hippocrates. The other quote that we can see is, "One should eat to live, not live to eat." The third one here is that those who think they have no time for healthy eating will sooner or later have to face time for the illness. And lastly, of course, to eat is a necessity, but we have to eat intelligently. Now, these are some basic concepts of nutrition. We'll just quickly revisit. All of us know about the basic concepts of nutrition. First of all, we need an optimum nutrition. Is that right? So the nutrition should not be undernutrition. It should also not be what? Overnutrition. It has to be an optimum balance for a healthy functioning of our body. And when I say optimum, there is a very important term here that I have highlighted that is called as recommended dietary allowance, and that is the RDA. So these are actually amounts that have been designed for each age group. For example, we can talk about age groups like infants, we talk about school children, we talk about adults, young adults like all of you, we talk about elderly people. So these are recommended, you can say, amounts of food that we all should have. Of course, our active daily living, both indoor and outdoor, will depend on adequate nutrition. The lack of nutrition will, of course, disturb the entire functioning of the body. And as I mentioned, it's not only undernutrition that we talk about, but also what? Overnutrition. Overnutrition, can anybody tell me what is one consequence of overnutrition? Obesity, it's written here also. So obesity. And another is what? Toxicity. Remember that we have so many nutrients we all need in our body. I'll give you one example. For example, we talk about vitamin A. All of you are aware of vitamin A? So we need vitamin A. Otherwise, we will have, if we have a deficiency of vitamin A, we will have some problem, right? Can anybody tell me what vitamin A deficiency causes?
Night blindness.
Night blindness. But remember that if we take too much of vitamin A also, over the optimum dose, recommended dose, what will happen? It can also cause toxicity in the body and affect certain organs like pancreas, liver, etc. So it's very important that optimum term is very important for nutrition. So we must have a homeostatic balance. I think we all again are aware of the basic macronutrients and micronutrients that our body requires. So what are our macronutrients that we require? Carbohydrate, protein, fats. These are required in larger amounts in our body. And we have what? Micronutrients like vitamins and minerals. These are required in lesser amount, but they are equally important. Right? Apart from these, of course, we have further macrominerals, microminerals, then essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, which cannot be synthesized by our body, and we need to take it in the diet. So all these are the essential nutrients that are required. Here again, a quick glance at this chart. I think all of you are aware of all these vitamins that we have, all the macrominerals and microminerals. We won't be going into details of their entire deficiencies, etc. But just to have a look at what all vitamins and minerals are there. Okay. Next, coming to a very important concept, that is of a balanced diet. Now, what do we mean by a balanced diet? Anybody can tell? What do we mean by a balanced diet? A diet that is having all the nutrients from all the food groups and in the recommended dose, right? Now here we can see a very illustration there that is very well, is often used to understand the balanced diet. It's like a plate that we eat, right? Plate of food that we eat. So here you can see that we have different portions there. And for example, you can see we have the cereals, etc., a little more portion, fruits and vegetables, more portion, and we have fats or sugar, very less portion. So this is how our division should be there in whatever food that we are having. Which type of job profile? Very good. For example, if you are having a sedentary, job over here, sitting here and just working on the computer. So what kind of a lifestyle you are having? A sedentary lifestyle. Or if you are an athlete, right? In the college also there are many athletes. So what is their lifestyle and their requirement will be different from a person who is just sitting whole day on the computer, right? So the activity is also very important. Plus in the balanced diet, as you can see the last line here, dietary fibers, the role of dietary fibers is very important nowadays, and which we all understand dietary fibers as, what are dietary fibers? Salads, you have cellulose, right? All this will have a lot of dietary fiber. It's very important because a lot of research is seen, apart from the fact that it helps in constipation, other things, also it is helpful in preventing cancers. There are a lot of research is going on right now regarding this. So we must include dietary fibers in our diet. And of course, antioxidants should be included. Now this is again a balanced diet. You can see this table here. This is for all the age groups. We'll just focus on the youth, that is in yellow highlighted, I've highlighted in yellow. So these are all the requirements in grams per day that are required for all the food groups that are there, right? So this should be what should be followed. We should be aware of this. Okay. Now another way of representing how much food group, which food group we should take in how much quantity or how much portion is very important, and this is represented by the food pyramid. Just like we had in the Eat Well plate, where in the plate we showed the portions, here we are showing it as a pyramid. So you can see at the bottom we have the cereals, legumes and pulses, then the vegetables, fruits etc., then egg, meat, fish etc., then the oils, ghee, coconut, and last is what? Salt and sugar. That should be the minimum. Now we talked about what should be there in a balanced diet, right? What should be there. Now what should not be there in a balanced diet? And you can all see with the illustrations here, this is all what we are all having, right? But this should not, this once in a while is okay. Once in a while you should have. But it should not be a daily, in your daily food. If you're having all these, right now you may not realize, but later on the effects will show up, right? So here let's quickly go through this, what all you should not add in our diet at all. Excessive sugar, excessive sweets. I'm using the term excessive, right? Then there is a syrup that is used, that is high fructose corn syrup. It is very much used in all these sweetened beverages and all that we have, lots of sweets. It's really very bad for the body, So it's full of sweet. And this kind of a fructose, is something which, especially if a person is diabetic, I'll come to that later on, should not have these, because this causes immediate spikes in the blood sugar level, which are not good for the body. So these again should be avoided. Okay, then foods, of course, fried and trans fat. Now somebody will tell me now regarding trans fat. I think we all have heard about this term. Anybody?
Extra fat type.
Yes, extra
Fat accumulated in the belly region or any.
extra fat. When we talk about trans fat, it's within the oil. Right now we are not talking about body. It's in the oil itself.
Okay, trans and cis pattern type something.
Okay, yes, you're close to that. Now remember one thing, that we all know that oils and fats, right? They are also required for our body. But a fat like trans fat, what is happening is, you take, supposing you're taking a fried food, right? Any kind of food, like samosas we take, right? Now what happens is, supposing at home, of course, you're taking fresh oil. Once you're having it, once in a while you can have no problem. But if you are reheating the oil again and again, right? So what is happening is, the oil is becoming hydrogenated. There is a change in the structure, right? So that is what is leading to a trans fat, which is very dangerous for our body. It gets deposited in arteries, right? So it's very important that we have to be very sure that when we are taking the fried foods, that oil is not reheated again and again, right? So then we have another compound that is called acrylamide, which is also found in fried foods. not necessarily reheating, in general fried foods we find that. And this compound is neurotoxic. When I mean neurotoxic, neuro means something to do with the nervous system. So this again we have to be careful that to avoid the fried foods. Once in a while, as I again said, is okay, but not as a daily practice. Then of course, cholesterol rich food that is having high saturated fat. All of us know if there is too much high cholesterol in our body, what will happen? It will go and deposit in the arteries, right? Then it will cause blockage in the arteries and leading to heart attack. So atherosclerosis, I think some of you may have heard about this term. I'll come to that later also. Then very important is, of course, another thing which is very common nowadays, which was not that there before, is the incidence of fatty liver. Have you come across this term fatty liver? Anybody? Fatty liver, so you know our liver cells are made up of hepatocytes or cells are there which are functioning normally. But when we have fatty liver, what is happening is that the fat is getting accumulated in those normal cells and the cells are not able to function properly. Now this is become nowadays it's like, you know, you can say the very high percentage of young adults as well as middle-aged adults are facing this problem of fatty liver. And why is that? Because we are consuming high cholesterol diet, high saturated fats, and that has led to this fatty liver. Again here, and of course excessive sweet also, which ultimately is getting converted to the fat. Then next is of course this point here, that is the high amount of salt intake and refined flour. I will focus more on the salt intake. Can anybody correlate this with, why am I saying that high salt intake should be avoided in a balanced diet?
High salt intake can lead to high blood pressure.
Excellent, very good. So high salt intake, it can lead to hypertension. And hypertension is what? High blood pressure. See, again we are telling earlier on hypertension, high blood pressure, we used to hear in, you know, our parents, grandparents, you know, that age it used to come up. Nowadays, I will show you later on again in hypertension, we have hypertensive people in age groups like your age group, in 20s and 30s, which is very alarming because at this age group you are having hypertension, then of course it will again lead to heart conditions, heart problems later on. So high salt intake, and where do we find all this high salt is there? Chips packets we have, you know, they have lots of salt, high salt, or we are having some, you know, processed canned foods which have lots of salt. Whatever processed foods we have, they have a lot of high sodium or high salt content. Then of course we have here preservatives which are very bad for our body. Like I've given one example here of BHA. It affects the neurological system. Then again we have sodium nitrate, that is, I just told about processed foods like canned food, they can also cause pancreatic cancer. So these should be avoided. Okay, now coming to a couple of diets which have been recommended and which are good, and these have been recommended by important, you know, like WHO, UNESCO, American Heart Association. So I am telling about these. Otherwise, you will nowadays see in the internet, you will find dozens of diets, right? But you have to be very careful. You should not just blindly follow what diet they are telling. And I am just going to mention 2 diets here, which I have found that they have been recommended. Otherwise, I will not mention about the other diets at all. Because I am apprehensive about the safety of those diets. So a lot of diets are given. For example, low carb diet. Maybe some of you have heard about it. Low carbohydrate diet to reduce the weight. You know, nowadays everybody wants to reduce weight, but it has to reduce in a proper weight. Not like, you know, if you are going on a very low carbohydrate diet, it can cause a very dangerous condition called ketosis in the body. And that can even lead to death. So there are certain diets which are, we have to, and whenever you follow a diet, you must consult with your doctor before following any diet. Don't follow any diet from the net as such. So here we have one diet as a Mediterranean diet. This is found to be very good because it has shown that it reduces the risk of heart disease. And here basically you can see that There are lots of vegetables and fruits. Then there is like some fish, moderate amount of dairy products, moderate amounts. And of course olive oil, etc. is in this diet. Another diet which anybody heard about the DASH diet? No? So okay, now we just talked about hypertension, right? Now DASH diet, if you can see here, I've just highlighted. DASH means what? D stands for dietary. Then next is what? Approach is A. Then S is stop. And H is what? Hypertension. So basically it's a dietary approach to stop hypertension. And DASH diet is in general like the Mediterranean diet. But here what else is important? We have to reduce the amount of salt. This diet is for people who are hypertensive, already suffering from high blood pressure, or people who are pre-hypertensive. That means they are in that range that they can anytime become what? Hypertensive. So this diet is also recommended, as I've written here, by American Heart Association, etc. Okay. Now, one more concept which I just want to briefly touch upon is that nowadays we talk about probiotics, right? Anybody about probiotics? Any idea?
Yogurts.
Yes.
Yogurts, gut.
Very good. In the gut?
The gut enzyme, not enzymes, but
Bacteria. Very good. So basically we have got in our gut good bacteria. We also have harmful. We all think of, bacteria as harmful to our body. We have so many diseases that are being caused by bacteria. So we say that bacteria is bad for us, right? But there are certain good bacteria also in our body. And these good bacteria, I'll give you the examples later on, we'll be coming to a slide, like lactobacillus is a good bacteria, right? So this is actually what they're doing nowadays. For example, you may have heard probiotic curd. Have you come across curds? You just go and look at the labels. You will see that it's written probiotic. Probiotic curd means they have that bacteria within that. And when we are having that, we are improving our gut microbiota. Because in our gut, we have a lot of microorganisms, which we call as microbiota. And there is a lot of, you can see connection there, I've just shown here. There is a connection between the brain, the gut means our intestine, and the microbiota or the microorganisms living there. So we find that here, we can see these microbes, they are very helpful. For example, as we can see here, I've written here, regarding serotonin. I think all of you know serotonin is called the happy hormone. This is a neurotransmitter in our body, in our brain. People who have low levels of serotonin, what happens? They will suffer from depression, right? So the research is showing that these microbiota are helping in producing what? Serotonin. Another here is a very important hormone or neurotransmitter that is called GABA. GABA is also here, is shown that it can decrease the fear and anxiety. People who are suffering from anxiety, it can decrease. And GABA is produced if we have good microbiota. And there are many other functions here of the gut microbiota. So coming to the probiotics, I've already mentioned. So this also we should be including in our diets. As I said, in curd we can have fermented food. A lot of fermented food has this type of bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. And they also have a lot of role, it has been seen. It can reduce respiratory tract infections, other antimicrobial activity, etc. Okay. Now coming to a couple of more concepts which we should be aware of also. Lactose intolerance. Now, anybody lactose intolerance, what it can mean? Milk, very good. So it's basically milk products that the person is not able to digest that milk. For example, lactose is there. Basically, they lack the enzyme lactase. In our body, we have the enzyme, so they lack it. So therefore, they are not able to digest it. And what happens is that they will suffer from bloating, abdominal pain, etc. So if you are lactose intolerant, so you should avoid these milk products. The other thing is gluten intolerance. What about gluten intolerance? This also you should be aware of, because some people may be intolerant to gluten, especially people who are suffering from a disease called celiac disease. Gluten is present, again it's in a very common food we eat every day. Wheat, right? In our rotis and chapatis that we have. So, but if you are having a celiac disease and that gluten, what it does is basically, it causes, it's like, acts as an antigen in our body, and a cascade of antibody reactions take place, like an autoimmune disease. So it becomes very, very difficult for these people to, of course, digest this wheat. Plus also it will affect the intestine. It will affect, I won't go into details, it affects the structure of the intestine, the villi in the intestine. We have got villi over there. It affects that. Okay, one more common thing before we go on to the nutritional concerns. Food allergy. How many of you have come across some kind of food allergy? Yes, food allergies. So this is very common, but food allergy can be, as we can see, all these types of, very common peanuts. Many times you might have seen in the label, it is written that peanuts are there in this, so it can be an allergy. So we have in wheat, eggs, people are to fish, prawn, all these things, seafood, a lot of allergies are there. Now, I'm just focusing here on this point that I'm highlighting. Allergies, normally we are not very scared of it, right? We got an allergy, we had some maybe, symptom can be, I got some rash, I got sneezing or something like that. I took an anti-allergic and it's okay. Right? We are fine, okay, they subsided. And then I avoid that food. But this is one thing very important to know, that an allergy can also become life-threatening. And that can happen whenever we say that a person is suffering from an anaphylactic shock. So a simple allergic reaction can become what? A shock, anaphylactic shock. In this, what happens is basically, there is obstruction over here from where we are breathing, right? So there's an obstruction here, as you can see, a bronchospasm, lowering of blood pressure, marked lowering of blood pressure, and this can even cause. So if you have any kind of allergy or allergic reactions, so you should always consult the doctor and see whether what is the level that it can go up to. Okay. Now coming to the nutritional concerns that are affecting our youth today. Now of course this is just a general, we know the reasons why a lot of nutritional, we can say the transition is going when you're coming from school to college, and the social roles are changing, so leaving your parents' home, and maybe you're not getting good nutrition, you're not able to do that here. The quality of diet and all, this is all influenced by many factors here. And of course, in college life, initiating smoking, increased alcohol consumption, then drug dependence are also social health problems that will again affect, and I'll come to this later. Cancer is the areas also. And as I mentioned before, that poor nutrition during youth will have severe consequences later on in middle or elderly life. Okay, some common micronutrient deficiencies that our youth of today are facing, and these are all based upon various research papers that we have seen. And we can see here only a few I have highlighted here. Now here we can see iron deficiency. Yes, I think all of you are aware of iron deficiency. It causes what? Anemia. And here it's written, one of the research studies showed that about 30% of the menstruating women may be deficient in iron. We have to be very much aware, as we were talking about. Everything about nutrition also here is the awareness has to be there. Education has to be there. We have to know what will happen, then only we will follow the guidelines. Now here, of course, then as I said, Vitamin A deficiency, we mentioned before. Vitamin D deficiencies, we all know can cause bone problems. Then vitamin B12 deficiencies, vitamin B9 deficiency, iodine deficiency. So all these are the micronutrient deficiencies. Of course, iodine, we know that we have our salt is iodized, so that there is a lot of decrease in that, but still there is deficiency still there in iodine. But there are various programs also, government programs are running, so that we don't, but still we have to follow that. But the important point is to follow. Okay, now coming to obesity in youth. And this, of course, in the West, it's a major problem. Here, it's also started now in India also, the youth, because of the lifestyle and because of sedentary lifestyle, others, no exercise, so, and again, eating all junk food is leading to what? Obesity. Now, obesity here is, as we know that, these lifestyle disorders are all interlinked. When I say hypertension is a lifestyle, obesity, type 2 diabetes, I'm sure you've all heard about these terms. These are all interlinked. If I'm obese, I may suffer from type 2 diabetes. I may suffer from hypertension or heart diseases, which is very okay. So here now is a simple way, all of you can check your body mass index. That tells us whether we are obese or not. It's a very simple calculation. I think you've heard about BMI? Yes? Okay. So weight over height square is a very simple calculation here. And if you are in the normal range, 18 to 24 is a normal. Anything above that would be obese. Then we have here another important thing in obesity is, although I won't go into details today here about that. So obesity we talked about in general, a person is obese. And another important is abdominal obesity. That is, there is fat accumulated where? In the abdominal region. And that is nowadays becoming a big problem, and it leads to a metabolic syndrome. That's again a combination of a lot of things together. And that can be very, dangerous later on in life. So we can see that from the waist-hip ratio. Again, this is a very simple measurement. You can measure the waist and the hip, and over here the values are there. If it is more than 0.90 in males and more than 0.78 in females, then it shows what? Abdominal obesity. Now these are again some research studies and news articles which are showing how the obesity is increasing, right? And this one here we can see this especially is from the 1990s till now 2022, right? So you can see now an alarming increase in obesity has taken place. So now what can we do to prevent this obesity? It's all depending upon, yes, your diet and of course your exercise. Two things are very important. We are talking more about nutrition today. I'm not talking about exercise today. But remember, for all these, especially lifestyle disorders, we need what? Nutrition has to be okay and exercise has to be there. Then only we will not suffer from obesity or things like that. So here, of course, as I mentioned here, the same thing, we know that the obese individual will be leading sedentary life, will not be having physical activity, they should not be consuming alcohol that provides a lot of calorie without nutrients, diet should be full of fruits and vegetables, this we all know. So this kind of a regime should be followed. Okay. Now coming to what we have discussed a bit earlier about hypertension. Hypertension in youth. This was not heard of before, maybe 50 years back, we would see maybe a few cases. Now we are seeing that in young adults, 20, 30, and I think all of you are also hearing sometimes, we hear in the news nowadays, a person was just 40 and he died of a heart attack suddenly, even lesser than that, sudden, heart attack. Why at such a young age things like this are happening? Because of, again, all this stress, other things, smoking, high cholesterol. So here again, as I say, when I talk about nutrition here, very important, we've already mentioned is that the person should have low salt. and of course have less cholesterol, then more vegetables and fruits, etc. Avoiding junk food. Okay. So this is basically the research is showing that hypertension is nowadays in the young adults. And you can see here, hypertension is affecting so many organs of our body, right? From brain, it can cause stroke, confusion, headache. Stroke is a very dangerous condition. It can be life-threatening. Then retina, eyes get affected, heart, blood, kidneys. So we have to be very careful regarding this. This again is studies that are showing an increase in the hypertension in the youth. Okay, now prevention again, we've already talked about the DASH diet, right? So how do you prevent hypertension? By having a DASH diet which is having less salt, less cholesterol, more fruits and vegetables, etc. Then of course, brisk walking, weight must be reduced, then no smoking, no alcohol consumption. These are all there. Okay, now coming to the next problem or next concern that we have in youth is the atherosclerosis. Now again, atherosclerosis was not seen earlier in young population, but now we are seeing it has started. And here, these are all evidences to show that, again, the same lifestyle, because of the lifestyle, because of high consumption of high cholesterol food, high saturated fats, all this is causing what? Atherosclerosis. And what is atherosclerosis? It's basically the deposition of fat in the arteries that are supplying the heart. And then it will cause what? Blockage, and then leading to what? Heart. So atherosclerosis again should be prevented, and the prevention for that is again through the dietary and lifestyle modifications, as we have earlier seen also similar, especially focusing on low cholesterol food. Okay, even diabetes. Now, when we talk about diabetes, we have now seen that type 2 diabetes. Can anybody tell me difference between a type 1 diabetic and a type 2 diabetic? See, we have one is type 1 diabetes and one is type 2 diabetes.
One is kidney.
Yes?
One diabetes affects the kidney function of course.
Okay, that's a separate, yeah, diabetes insipidus. Okay, so we are now talking about diabetes mellitus, right? So basically, okay, type 2 is lifestyle disorder. Type 1 is when the pancreas is not producing insulin, right? Beta cells are not producing. So we are talking about type 2 only, which is when we are talking about lifestyle disorder. So this is also being seen that there is an increase in youth in the type 2 diabetes. And prevention would be through a diabetic diet, more dietary fiber, fat intake should be less, same things, vegetable, fruits, legumes should be consumed, simple sugar should be avoided, etc. Okay, now moving on to a very important concept, that is about the mental health in youth. Now it has been seen that nutrition, there are a lot of research, there's lots of research has been done, how nutrition can improve the mental function. Nowadays, all of us are going through a lot of stress, anxiety, the lifestyle is like that. And here, we find that good nutrition can help in improving conditions like, as I mentioned a few, like depression, anxiety. Then we have heard about attention deficit disorder, ADHD. And this is basically proper nutrition can affect these conditions and can improve them. Now here we have a couple of examples here, I will be just telling you. For example, nutrient deficiencies like as I mentioned, like in zinc, vitamin B9 and vitamin B12. If we are deficient in these vitamins, so it can cause depression and other problems. A diet which is high in processed foods has been linked to depression again. If we take omega-3 fatty acids, this is a very good fat, then it can reduce inflammation and may prevent depression. Blood glucose levels also affect our mental state. If there is low blood glucose level, it can cause anxiety. High blood glucose can cause depression. Iodine is very important for mental health because it helps the cerebral in the brain. It metabolizes the energy. Okay, now this is very important. Proteins contain amino acids, and a lot of amino acids are precursors for our neurotransmitters. For example, in our brain we have serotonin. I told you earlier, neurotransmitter, dopamine, GABA. So all these neurotransmitters, the precursors are amino acids. So your amino acids should be good in the diet. Protein should be good in the diet. Then of course, not having enough nutritious food can also lead to this. So here, as I said, this one example here for serotonin, which is the happy hormone that we know. And this is actually, there is a complex steps of, you can say chemical reactions in the body or metabolism, where they depend on a lot of cofactors like vitamin B1, riboflavin, copper, calcium. So you can see all these nutrients are very much required. So if we are deficient in that, we may have these mental health problems. Now I think really coming to the last of these slides, I guess. Now eating disorders in youth. This is again nowadays, it has again, as I said, in the West it was prevalent, but here again it is started. Any idea about this? Eating disorder?
Excessive eating during stress. Yes.
Okay, in stress or depression, excessive eating. Apart from that, okay, binge eating, one of the disorders. When we say binge eating, I think it's a common term. We also say binge eating disorder. Apart from that, and why is this happening? Eating disorders, and I'll give you a hint in the sense that we can see here in the image also over there. This is more prevalent in the women, young women. Very good. Yes, very good. Now this is what is happening in, I think if I tell the terms anorexia, it's written there, anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. These are two eating disorders which are very much prevalent, and the basic thing is that, as you can see in the mirror, she's not that obese, right? But in the mirror they are trying to show she's thinking that I'm very obese. So I need to not eat so that I should have a particular, this thing, appearance. So that is what is affecting young women a lot nowadays, especially in the West. It's a major, it's now actually, as I've written here, it is under the statistical diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. So this is coming under a mental disorder. It's not just an eating, we said eating disorder, but it's a mental disorder because it leads to many kind of problems, anxiety, depression and other things also. And what they're doing here is basically, there are two types of, which main I'm discussing. In anorexia nervosa, what they do is, they will eat less also, but what they will do is, they will try to avoid high calorie diet, and they will induce vomiting. So once they've eaten the food, they will induce vomiting. So what happens is that all the food that they've eaten also, they get no nutrition. And this is very dangerous because you can see here, it can lead to hypokalemia, low potassium in the body, ions get disturbed, low electrolyte balance, and fluid loss, electrolyte, as I said. So all this is, again, it really has to be looked into, and then the next is about bulimia nervosa. In this is also what is happening is that there is recurrent bout of binge eating. So they eat a lot. In anorexia, they're not eating that much, and whatever they're eating, they're vomiting. Here they're eating in regular intervals, binge eating, and then they are vomiting. So this is again with the use of laxative or pertative. So both these complications can be very dangerous, and sometimes they have to even be hospitalized because of lack of nutrition, lack of the electrolyte imbalance. So this can be also very dangerous. Okay, and last is regarding the social health problems in youth. So we all know that these are the problems affecting our youth nowadays: smoking, alcoholism, drug dependence. Now here I'm just focusing on nutrition, but as you know, smoking, if I just remove from nutrition also, and I tell, smoking and the nicotine and the tobacco, there's so many carcinogens in them. It affects all. I didn't bring that image. There was one image I wanted to show. It can cause cancer throughout the body. Of course, you know cancer of lung, right? Cancer of lung is very common in smokers. So it causes cancer. So that we know. Plus, there's so many other, ill effects of smoking. Here we just concentrate on the nutrition effect. So smoking actually reduces the absorption of nutrients. Whatever you're eating, it has to be absorbed by the body. So that is effective. Then they also tend to consume less nutrients. They reduce fruit and vegetable consumption. Then more processed food, etc. Nicotine. Nicotine is an appetite suppressant. So they will not take regular balanced diet. Then that will affect the brain and the central nervous system. Then smoking can also increase risk of bone density becomes less, osteoporosis, because of reduced absorption of vitamin D. So as I said, I've just focused on nutrition here, but smoking has many ill effects. Then alcoholism again. Here again I'm focusing on the nutrition aspect. Again alcoholism, they have, the ill effects of alcohol consumption. So again absorption of nutrients, the metabolism. And here I would like to focus on one thing here. Alcohol can damage organs. If there is excessive alcoholic consumption, what happens is that the liver, especially the liver, the liver is a very important organ of our body. If the liver is not functioning, we cannot function. So what happens in chronic alcoholics who are drinking from a long time, many years, excessive drinking, the liver becomes, have you heard the term cirrhosis of the liver? Anybody? Yes? So, like we talked about fatty liver. Fatty liver is okay condition. If you, follow proper diet, exercise, it can reverse back. Is okay. But if you have something like a stage of cirrhosis, means the entire liver cells, I talked about liver cells, hepatocytes, they get necrosed or the tissue becomes dead. So now the liver cannot function. So that is one condition which happens, and then cirrhosis can lead to death. Then here of course the other ill effects of alcohol, again in terms of drug dependency also similarly. Again I'm talking only about nutritional aspect. Drug dependence, a lot of ill effects are there. So here again nutrient absorption is impaired, organ damage. They suffer from calorie and protein malnutrition also because they are not taking proper nutrition or food, disturbance of the social and family life, etc. And again here, if there are organ pathologies is there, organs are getting spoiled, then again nutrition status gets disrupted. Okay, so now how do we transform our health through nutrition? So it's like how we fuel our body will affect how it works. Poor nutrition causes problems in daily active living, like these are some things which we may experience like fatigue, then anxiety, maybe weight gain, some sleep disturbance and more. So these are some general things that we would day to day we may face. But nutrition imbalance can then lead to a variety of chronic conditions which are, as I said, later on they will cause a lot of problems like type 2 diabetes, atherosclerosis, obesity, just now we discussed hypertension, mental health problems. So a balanced diet will provide us all the building blocks for good health. And so this is basically our choice, we can just make a good choice in choosing good food or good nutrition and avoiding the foods that are not good for our body. And then of course, very important is lastly, you have to be educated and aware about the role of specific nutrients. You must know, and then only you will make that informed choice. For example, I just get simple dietary fiber. It's a very simple thing, dietary fiber. But we know that it is very helpful in diabetics because it helps to control blood sugar. it also lowers cholesterol. So something like very simple, dietary fiber is what we get in our salads and all, right? If you're having that, but we should know that dietary fiber is good for this. It will prevent, the cholesterol. So like this, awareness is the key. Lastly, I would just like to end with a quote that this is by U.B. Blake. He was an American pianist and a composer, and he lived up to 96 years. But he said this: if I had known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. So this is for us, our choice to look after ourselves, have proper nutrition, good exercise, and to take care of ourselves. And these are the references. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an informative and insightful session. Every one of us who has gathered here for this event has gained a lot of new knowledge from your session. Moving ahead, I would now like to invite the President of NSS Hansraj, Shruti Gupta, to come, say a few words and deliver the vote of thanks.
Well, thank you so much, everyone present over here. I would like to extend a heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Kaveri Chakrabarty, whose insightful address has enriched our understanding of nutrition. Since nutrition is a concern, no matter which social class you belong to or how much economic wealth you accumulate, it is a concern for all, especially for you all college students who have just recently left their homes and have to live on their own. We would like to appreciate the guidance and encouragement from our principal, Professor Dr. Rama Madam, whose leadership has fostered a culture of service and compassion among us all. I would like to thank our librarian, Narendra Rawat sir, Suyar sir, Nishant sir, Veena ma'am, and Professor Chetna and the entire team who have worked tirelessly to coordinate our NSS initiatives for the day, demonstrating unwavering dedication. And I would like to thank these faculty members. These are the faculty members who are coordinating our Sachhuta Pakhwada as well and helping us throughout. So a big round of applause for them. I would like to specially thank our convener, Dr. Purva ma'am, whose leadership and guidance has always helped us, and her new ideas and initiatives have been really a power to all of us. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to thank all our teaching and non-teaching staff whose selfless contributions have created a supportive environment for all students to grow and serve. Lastly, I would like to extend a special appreciation for all the entire team of NSS volunteers, our coordinators and the core team whose relentless efforts have made this day a success and keep on making a tangible effect in our community. The spirit of service before self of all of us is truly inspiring, so a big round of applause for you all. So thank you all for being part of this meaningful celebration. I hope we all of us continue to uphold the values of NSS and strive to make a difference in the lives of others. Thank you so much.